Hello, everyone. My name is David Harrison from the Boston Kendo Kyokai, and I'd like to start by thanking the Japan Society of Boston for producing this BUDŌ series and giving us a chance to uh, discuss and learn about Kendo. So Kendo is one of the oldest and perhaps the most closely associated martial arts with samurai, and Kendo has transcended its bloody origins in the feudal past of the warring daimyo and samurai armies across Japan, and it has become more of a bona fide martial art that develops in its practitioners character through rigorous and demanding physical and mental training. If one were to literally translate Kendo, it means sword way or sword path, and perhaps more poetically, it could be called the art of Japanese fencing, or perhaps the way of the sword. In either case, none of that really does justice to the deeper philosophical and spiritual meaning of Kendo, particularly the second kanji, do. It can mean an actual path, but more in association with a martial art, it means a way of life or a commitment to a deeper journey, perhaps without a destination, personal journey of cultivating one's self. The purpose of Kendo is to improve one's character and contribute to a better community and society by developing the 5 virtues of Kendo. Jin, benevolence, Gi, righteousness, Rei, courtesy, Chi, wisdom, and Shin, sincerity. The precursor to Kendo, of course, was Kenjutsu, and was heavily influenced by Buddhism, Zen Buddhism in particular, and practiced by the samurai to enable them to face death or serious injury in combat. Kendo now is practiced to enable one to face life's challenges, perhaps disappointment, perhaps discouragement, or in the case of competition in tournaments, losing. So remember, victory is never guaranteed, and defeat is inevitable. And through training in Kendo, a Kendoka is learning to deal with that, or to prepare themselves for that eventuality. So during the Meiji Restoration, the samurai class was abolished, and the wearing of the 2 swords was prohibited. However, many of the Kenjutsu masters at the time felt that the study of swordsmanship was a valuable cultural event or experience, and would be critical for the development of character for the new country. And it's also interesting that many of the majors, perhaps most of the Meiji leadership, were themselves samurai, and they understood that, and they agreed with that. As a result, Kenjutsu was reformed into Kendo, a standard form of Kendo, a program that could be introduced to the public schools, the colleges and universities, the police departments, the military, just about any aspect of Japanese society. And so as a result of that, today, all the public schools have Kendo as part of their curriculum. So do the universities. Every college and university has a Kendo club, and many corporations have Kendo clubs. And And I even met a gentleman who was a fireman, and they practice kendo every day in the morning. Kendo is a deep traditional cultural activity that is widely respected across Japan, widely practiced. I think there's somewhere around 2 million people practicing kendo. And so it's an important aspect of today's Japanese culture with a direct connection to the samurai and in particular the Tokugawa shogunate. So thank you so much for coming to this program and giving us an opportunity to share this information with you, and arigato.
Thank you. So Yoshida Sensei is going to teach us, now that we have an overview of what Kendo is, Yoshida Sensei is actually going to show us and share with us a little bit of what the equipments are and the parts of the Kendo equipment. So can we have that video on, please?
Yeah, so we are the Kendo gi and hakama and the armors. So this is the front view. And then, yeah, so the bottom, hakama is actually a pants, not a skirt. And then this is the back view. Then we use shinai, bamboo swords to hit each other. So we treat shinai as a real sword. And as you can see, there is a handle, the handle part, it's called tsuka and separated by tsuba. And then like a Japanese sword, there is orientation. So the blade side is opposite to this string side, which is called tsuru. And then there is this datotsubu indicated on the right panel, where you can cut most like a real Japanese sword. So, and then it's indicated by this nakayui, and then you are supposed to hit with that part. It's called monouchi, in order to get a valid point. Yeah. And then we use armors. It's called bogu or kendogu. So men is to protect your head, and the head is one of the targets. And then kote, you put on your hands to protect your hands. Then do to protect torso, and then tare to protect lower abdomen and also the upper part of the leg. Sorry, tare for the lower abdomen and then upper part of the leg. And also we put this nafuda, zekken, tare name, to indicate which your club is and what your last name is. So you usually we have a pride on our zekken. And then there is no protection on your body, and you are supposed to hit from behind. And that's actually part of the Kendo spirit. When you face your opponent, you have to face from front. And then yeah, so these are yeah. So these shinai and bogu actually appeared around the period, like early 18th century, and before that, samurais were practicing just kata, but with the appearance, like emergence of bogu and shinai allowed them to actually hit each other for practice, and they look like very similar to what we actually use now, like Craig is now putting on bogu on. So, but basically, with, as you can see, this with the very high level of traditional Japanese craft technology enable us to hit each other safely from that period and up to now. So that's the kind of the appearance, emergence of bogu, and shinai was the foundation of modern kendo. And then in the next session, we are going to show where actually hit as a target.
Fantastic, Sandy. Can we show the video of the target, the actual target? And while we wait, I do see that Harrison Sensei and Yoshida Sensei are wearing their kendogi.
Kendogi, yes.
Yeah.
So about the strikes, all of these strikes in Kendo must be done with the correct part of the shinai, the datotsubu, as Yoshida Sensei pointed out. And also they have to have good posture and follow through. And they must be accompanied by a shout of the target that they're hitting. For instance, men, in this case, they're hitting men, which is the mask that we're wearing on our head. And because the shinai is flexible. There's no injury to anyone, and plus we have the bogu to protect. And kote is for the wrist, striking the wrist area. And if you could make out what they're saying kote. I'm striking kote. I think do is one of the most flamboyant of the waza, to come inside and across the torso. And if you notice, the footwork on all of these is the same, allowing you to move forward quickly and maintain the same kind of posture as you move forward, as opposed to going up and down. And Nidan waza is two-strike waza. So it's kind of like a combination, like in boxing, the old 1-2. So in the event that you attack the kote and the opponent blocks, you follow up with the men, kote men.
Fantastic, thank you. We learned a little bit about the bogu, the target. So can we actually play the video on the actual different practices of BUDŌ using BUDŌ?
Yeah, so we also practice using ribbon sword, and it's basically kata, the form. And there are two different kinds. One is like I established maybe 110 years ago. It's called the Nippon Kendo no kata, shown here. And then that All Japan Kendo Federation incorporated various practice methods from different old schools. So we are just showing the first one here. There are 1 to 7 using long sword, and then 1 to 3 using long and short sword. Actually, this wooden sword can be as powerful as a real shinken, so you cannot hit that opponent. And then the second one is newer, like established like 20 years ago. This is to learn the fundamentals, especially for the beginners. And then there are 1 to 9. They made this based on the training method from Tokyo Metropolitan Police. That one, the first one. This is the last one, the 9th. And those two senseis are the highest rank, Hanshi Hachidan Tara Sensei and the late Okano Sensei Kyoshi Hachidan.
Thank you very much. That's been wonderful to learn. But I believe we have, now that we've learned all about how to practice, we learned about the equipment, we learned about kata, but I don't think we've still seen a real shiai or competition. Do you say competition in English, or is that not the right way to call it?
Yeah, competition was shiai.
Fantastic. Yeah. So the video on shiai, please.
Yeah. So before we start the video, I just wanted to explain somewhat the format of a match. So you see here, there's actually 2 courts. There's the one in the foreground and the one in the background. Pay attention to the one in the foreground. So There are two competitors, obviously, and each competitor is identified by a color. On the back of their do is tied a ribbon, either a red one or a white one. And there are three judges in the court, a head judge, Shishin, and two assistant judges, Fukushin, and they have flags, a red flag and a white flag. And that's used to indicate each judge makes the call and will indicate if Shiro got the point or Aka, red, got the point. And if two judges agree, then the point is awarded. And the same for penalties. The penalties are a little different, but it's the same idea. And a kendo match is usually the best of 3 points. In other words, whoever scores 2 points first is the winner. If the if time runs out and the score is 1-0, of course, the person who scored 1 point is the winner. And it's possible that there would be a tie, particularly in this case. This is a team competition, and ties are allowed, so to speak. But in the event of a tie, there will be a tie break match. And in the team match, that will be at the end, the final match of the team. And so let's watch, and you'll see how things go. Of course, again, bowing before and after each match. So it looks like Shiro scored a kote there. And now the match is tied. Aka scored men. And once more. So Aka, red, is the winner of this match. 2 points to 1. Some very beautiful men right there. With Shiro. You'll notice that they shout at each other before striking or in between the action. That's to demonstrate their fighting spirit. And Shiro scored a kote, and that's a 2-0 match. Aka looks like scored kote, debana kote. And 1-0 match.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next portion of our program, I wanted to actually spend just a little moment asking Harrison Sensei and Yoshida Sensei about what Kendo means to them. You know, now that we've learned a little bit about Kendo, both overview and history, its role in Japan, we've learned about the various equipment, we've learned about practice, we've seen a shiai, but why do you practice Kendo, and what does Kendo mean to you, Yoshida Sensei and Harrison Sensei?
I guess I'll go first. It's difficult to say. As I said earlier, Kendo is an expression of Japanese culture, and a lot of what has transpired in the past to bring Kendo to where it is today happened within that cultural environment. And it's very difficult for non-Japanese to really grasp fully what Kendo is and what it means. I struggle with it all the time. I try. There's a concept, for instance, in Kendo called kokoro gamae, meaning having your heart ready for anything that's going to happen. And that sounds like, the Boy Scouts, always be prepared, but it's very, very difficult to do. And in Japan, it's expected that Kendo practitioners live outside of Kendo what they're doing and what they're learning in Kendo. And I found that's very, very difficult to do as a non-Japanese, because a lot of one of the other reasons is because I learned Kendo in Boston with very little exposure to high-ranking Kendo teachers. So I've kind of had to piece things together a little bit here, a little bit there. I know I don't have a full picture. So if there's one thing that I've learned from Kendo, I'd like to paraphrase Socrates, is I've learned that I don't know very much. And so I'll continue to practice Kendo. I'll continue to learn. We've been very fortunate lately that Kendo is becoming more and more accessible here in Boston. So I look forward to learning from as many people as I can. That's what I do. And I tell my students all the time, the most important thing to do in Kendo is to come to practice. Come to practice regularly, as many times as you can, and good things will happen. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, so yes, so I think you will hear things from other people later, but there are a lot of course, there are a lot of mental benefit, and also physical benefit. Also, you meet people, community, and these things. But one, I think I kind of want right now, as Harrison said, as you keep practicing, you learn more. It's like those spiral staircase. You come back to the same, but a bit higher, and then you see the same from different view, and it gets more interesting and more interesting, even if you see the same thing, and you get more into it. But I kind of want to say two things now. And one, I think I met a lot of senseis who teach me or teach us the life lessons. But at some point, sensei is not just the sensei is higher rank than me. It I realized that everyone can be a sensei, like children or outside of Kendo. So that's what I started to realize as I get higher rank. And another thing is as we get older, we tend to want to sort of preserve resources we have and kind of want to settle down. And then kind of in many ways, we become kind of conservative, but I think through Kendo, I feel like I learned to keep trying and sort of do more seme, not provoking opponent, seme to challenge myself, and there is no end to it. And that's what I feel right now as I get older and at higher rank.
So with that said, I would love to hear why others have started Kendo. Sandy, can we play the Kendo journey video, please?
Why I started the Kendo is because my father take me to the dojo near to my home, and I find it fascinating, so I started Kendo, and for now it is about 25 years since I started Kendo.
I joined Kendo because there was a dojo nearby my hometown where I grew up. So I started Kendo because my friends in college were doing Kendo, and they took me to their tournament that they hosted and stuck a shinai in my hand, and I have been doing Kendo ever since.
I watched Musashi no Ken comics book. That is how I started it.
I think Kendo is a sport, a lifetime sport that you can do, until the end of it. There's no stopping. Doesn't matter what age you are. There's a lot of disciplines that you can follow, and it's a lifetime sport. I like it about that.
I started Kendo because I just wanted a hobby during grad school, but it grew to be a lot more as I realized it was not just a fun activity, but a great way to make friends and develop myself.
Hi, I started Kendo because it's like a form of communication. Rather than talking, you can physically communicate with another person, and the physical aspect of it brings people together while performing keiko and basic drills in order to improve everyone's performance physically and mentally.
I started when I was in high school with a few friends who just wanted to try something new. There was something different. Not so many people do it where I'm from, but it was something that was more mental components, more strategy, more thinking. So there was an intellectual side, and then also the Budo side of competition and improving yourself. So those two things kind of came together, and that's why I kind of got hooked on it when I was in high school.
Hi. When I was 3 years old, my dojo opened near my house. So it's like very interesting. So I decided to go to the dojo with my father. And my sensei is very good sensei, and based on very basic, focus on basic. So very nice teacher, sensei.
Let's see. So I started Kendo because I wanted to practice with people. So actually, I wanted to do judo, but my wife said I'd get injured doing judo, so she suggested Kendo, and I like that. So yeah, I spend most of my day by myself at work, so I like the camaraderie of Kendo.
I started Kendo because my dad did Kendo, and so he brought me and my older sister to his dojo every Sunday, and I've been doing it since then.
Kendo because my mom recommended me to do.
So I started practicing Kendo because I've always been excited about martial arts, but I didn't really get any experience, and having the opportunity to do Japanese fencing was very, very exciting to me, especially in Boston when there's so many good dojos.
The reason why I started Kendo was because I moved to United States when I was 10 years old, and but I played baseball in Japan. But Kendo is a kind of a tie to my home country, so that's why I started Kendo.
Hi, I started Kendo many years ago when I lived in Hawaii, and a friend of mine who practiced judo at a dojo said, you should come see this samurai thing that they do before my practice. And I went to visit the dojo. It was a Budokan dojo in Hawaii, and I watched Kendo, and that was all it took. I really was all interested in samurai and things like that in Japan. And when I saw them practicing Kendo, I was hooked. I was 29 years old at the time, and I've been doing it ever since.
So my company has a lot of members love Kendo. So it is really useful for me to make the good human relationship among our company. So maybe it is a big good effect for my life. That's it.
Kendo affected my life because I made all my friends here. We have a big, nice community of Kendo practitioners in Boston, and I really enjoy practicing Kendo with them. How does Kendo impact my life? I think when I first started Kendo, I was very quiet. I had no kiai, I had no seme, and in kendo I kind of had to learn to be confident even when I didn't feel confident, and really just go for it. Cannot hesitate. So in life and at work, I'm better about taking charge and owning whatever it is I do. And so I think that is a way that Kendo has impacted me outside of Kendo.
It's pretty much like everything. So like decision making from work to decision making everyday life. Like yeah, I think that helps me to shape up my like little stuff or big decision making, so be decisive and so on. So that's what affects me. And mentally as well, it helps a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hi, thank you.
First time when I put on the bogu, it was very tiring, but the sensei said you need to keep going, and that makes my other things in my life, work, family, it's always push myself to, you can do more. There's no stoppage there. You can keep on pushing yourself to do more, and I think that by doing Kendo, it really helped me out in my other aspects of life. Thank you.
Other aspects of my life affected by Kendo, I think Kendo helps build discipline and develop not just myself physically, but also my mind, spirituality, and yeah, so it's a great way to become a better person through the art of Japanese swordsmanship.
It helped my posture and allowed me to communicate in a respectful way with my peers across work and amongst friends as well. And also, the community in Kendo is very tight, and I've made many friends throughout the journey of Kendo.
How does it affect my life now? I mean, aside from the fact that I think about Kendo all the time because I've been doing it for so long, it's just a regular component of my life. It's also helping make sure that I do things properly and with respect in every aspect of my life. So not just when I'm doing Kendo, do I act this way, now that it's spread through the way that I act throughout my life.
Okay, I became a polite person, and I say hello to everybody, and to learn respect everybody. So that is affects on me, and also be patient. I don't give up on anything easily. So that's okay.
It helps with stress. Yeah, just practice helps relieve stress and helps, like doing hard practices help you manage stress, learn how to manage stress. And that's really, really good for me at least. Yeah.
And one aspect of Kendo that I think is applicable in life is that it teaches me to be patient at all times.
It really helps us socialize with new people and creates new environment. And it really makes us involved in new communities and
And I think it's actually super useful for me because in the good days, Kendo can motivate me and can you should continue training. And also when I'm overconfident, it also reminds me that I should continue learning and continue, trying to thrive in Kendo.
Kendo does bring a lot of things to my life, including physical and mental, kind of everything, kind of almost like a mental therapy. but I think it also gives me a tie to my own culture, which I really cherish. So, thank you.
And what Kendo brings to every day is a sense of balance, physical strength, mental strength, spiritual strength. A lot of things, a lot of concepts in Kendo can be applied in daily life to help you get through each and every day.
So I'm going to ask a few questions now. One of the questions that we got was, what role does using your voice play in your practice? And how do you actually rehearse something like that? Or do you rehearse it on its own? Harrison Sensei, would you like to take a grab at that picture? I mean, question.
Sure. So the vocalization in Kendo is called kiai. And that word means bringing your spirit together. Ki being spirit and I meaning together. And it allows you to express yourself. So, and there's a lot of different parts of it. For instance, when we watched the Shiai video, you heard people saying something like "ya" or "hoy" or something like that, and that is to get yourself psyched up, but it's also to establish with your opponent that you are formidable and that it's not going to be easy for that person to just strike you. So that's one part of the vocalization. The other one is, in order for a strike to be correct, there's a thing. It's hard to translate it to English, called Kiken Tai Ichi, spirit, sword, body, one. And so you can easily see the sword, you can easily see the body, but spirit is something that you can't easily see. So it's vocalized. So when I go to strike men, at the moment of striking men, my breath, which is another word for spirit, both in English and in Japanese, my breath carries my voice, so that I'm coloring my spirit with my voice so that everyone will understand that spirit is involved. So that's why we shout. And it also shows intentionality. We could just be out there yelling anything and whacking away at each other, and it wouldn't make sense. And so by shouting men, when I strike men, that indicates that I intended to do that. And I used all of my capability, my spiritual capability, my technique, the sword, my body, my strength, everything. I'm using all of those together as one in order to affect, to bring my willpower to play in striking my opponent. So that's what it is. And, I mean, Kendo, its origin was fencing or fighting with swords. And there really is only, one moment to strike and then it's over. So that's kind of what the vocalization is about.
Thank you.
As far as practicing it, so many people are inhibited, non-Japanese who start Kendo. They're very inhibited to shout. It's not something that Americans easily do or feel comfortable doing. So I'm one of the hardest things that I have as a teacher is to get them to shout and to get them to shout with that energy that's required. So yeah, the vocal, that's a good question. And thank you for that.
Thank you. Yoshida Sensei, we have an interesting question that says, is Kendo more of a martial arts or is it more of a sport? And will it ever be an Olympic sport?
No, so yeah, so Kendo is a martial arts, but of course there is a sports aspect to it too.
Yeah.
Like that we saw in the competition. That's kind of sports aspect. However, we play or practice Kendo as a martial arts, not a sports. Yeah. And so, for example, after you score, if you do guts pose, then the score is gonna become erased. So yeah, so like it's not like a soccer, like a goal, and because yeah, we basically we have a respect, and we start with lei, finish lei, and then we are cutting the other opponent to take their life ultimately, and their life is as important as your life. So that's why before you bow, then whoever is gonna die, then but we respect each other kind of things. And then so for All Japan Kendo Federation basically is opposing to make Kendo become Olympic game. And then because I think there are a couple of reasons. One is it's difficult. It's also difficult to the general audience to see as well. And then if you started to introduce all these small rules like what judo did, then I think the essence of Kendo is gonna be lost. For example, we don't have a video judging in Kendo in the competition. And if you, of course, we record the video, and if you see details after the competition, sometimes they missed the kote, but why it's kote, or you can complain a lot of things. But it's not, the scoring is not about that moment. It has to be before and after and everything all together. And sometimes only the players and the judges know what happened, but the audience cannot see. And these things are very difficult, I think, for general audience to see as well. So, and if you have to decide who won, then that's gonna become more sports, and a lot of things may be lost.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it'll be an Olympic sport. I know I've asked that question to Japanese senseis, and they basically feel the same way that Yoshida does, is that there's something more important than winning and losing. And they don't like what happened to judo. They don't like that judo has stepped out of do and into sport. And I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Also, like unlike judo have all these incremental scoring to become ippon, but the Kendo is just ippon or no ippon.
Yeah.
And just 0 or 1. And also you have to accept what happened. You cannot complain to judges. If you cannot convince judges, even if it's not, maybe it wasn't ippon, but you have to accept that. That kind of spirit is important in Kendo.
There's no instant replay like in tennis where they can challenge. I challenge the call. And actually, if you watch some of the All Japan Kendo Championships or any of the Japanese tournaments, it's extremely fast. And particularly, as Yoshida Sensei says, the kote, striking the kote can take, I'd say, less than 1/10 of a second to strike that. And that's very hard for a TV audience to watch. So I've heard people, non-Kendo people who watch Kendo videos say it's boring. They're standing there yelling at each other and nothing happens, and then suddenly something happens and nobody knows what happened, and it's not very telegenic, I guess.
Yeah, and another thing is like if once it becomes Olympic, it becomes like more like a sort of target of commercialism, and that also I think that's a good idea. And having said that, there is a World Kendo Championship held every 3 years, because there are many, like about 60 countries practice Kendo. So there are those the occasion where all the kenshis all over the world meet and compete each other.
Wonderful. Actually, there's something that you said that probably would be a very good way to answer the next question that came in my private chat about how this person is saying they've heard about Iaido. and how does that, differ from Kendo? I think there was a little bit of a hint in what Yoshida Sensei already said, but we do have a video of that. It's also a part of the video. I think earlier on, we also heard about how the Kendo community is very, very tight. And Yoshida Sensei and Harrison Sensei had asked the other dojos around New England to submit videos.
Welcome to Seizankai. We practice Iaido and Kendo in Amherst, Massachusetts. My name is Thomas Hooper. I'm the instructor. I hope you enjoy this brief introduction. Seizankai was formed in 2004 as the Massachusetts branch of the Kenzen Dojo in New York City. Established in 1960, Kenzen Dojo has the distinction of being the first and oldest school of Kendo and Iaido in the eastern United States. Our name Seizan means quiet or peaceful mountain, though we sometimes make a lot of noise while training. We are happy to be a part of the friendly community of Kendo and Iaido groups in Massachusetts and beyond. Our dojo offers training in both Kendo and Iaido. These two aspects of Japanese swordsmanship are directly related, but since the latter art is less well known, I'd like to explain a little about it. Iaido, or Iaijutsu as it was called in earlier times, emerged as a subspecialty of Kenjutsu during Japan's long period of civil wars in the 15th and 16th centuries. The term Iai implies existing within or harmonizing with one's immediate circumstances and surroundings. Its essence lies in developing the skills and reflexes a warrior would need to instantaneously draw the sword from its sheath and cut or parry and counterattack in one continuous movement if suddenly attacked by single or multiple adversaries in a variety of situations. Some schools of Iai gradually transformed from emphasizing pure fighting techniques alone and began to include deeper philosophical, ethical, and spiritual elements, using training as a way to forge and polish one's character and, ideally, to preserve life rather than take it. There's an old expression, saya no uchi, which means to achieve victory without having to draw one's weapon. In contrast to modern Kendo, Iaido still uses a real sword or an unsharpened replica blade, so for reasons of safety, training is done solo and is based on kata, predetermined sequences of techniques performed against imaginary opponents, each kata being a little story, as it were. For the most part, each Iaido kata includes 4 main elements, as seen in this example: the initial drawing cut or block, one or more follow-up cuts, thrusts, etc., snapping the blade to the side, which represents cleaning it, and finally resheathing the sword, all the while maintaining a full state of alertness called zanshin. At Seizankai, we study a koryu, or classical style of Iaido called Muso Jikiren Eishinryu. Originating in the 16th century, it includes more than 40 separate kata, and its teachings have had a major influence on the development of many other styles of Iaijutsu and Iaido over the course of nearly 500 years. We also practice Zen Nihon Kendo Reme Iaido, a set of 12 kata formulated by the All Japan Kendo Federation beginning in the late 1960s. After World War II, Kendo was becoming increasingly sport-like, and while Kendo was growing in popularity, many Kendoka didn't have opportunities to study an Iaido koryu and had little or no experience with handling a real sword. It was feared that the way of the sword was declining into a sort of stick-fighting game. To rectify this, a committee of senior Iaido masters drew on various techniques from some of the most influential Iaido koryu to create a new set of standardized fundamental kata that could be widely taught and more easily studied by a greater number of Kendo practitioners. This All Japan Kendo Federation Iaido, also known as Seitei Iai, now serves as the core of Iaido training in many dojo and clubs worldwide, whether or not they also practice Koryu Iai, Kendo, or other Budo. Although Kendo and Iaido differ from each other in some ways, it should be kept in mind that they are interrelated complementary arts,
Like the two sides of a coin, they look somewhat different on each surface, but really have more in common than not, and together they form the core of Japanese swordsmanship. Thanks to the Japan Society of Boston and to our friends in the Massachusetts Kendo community for the chance to participate in this presentation. If you would like more information about our dojo, please contact us by email at seizanken@yahoo.com.
Welcome to the art of Japanese swordsmanship. Iaido, the way of the sword.
Hello, and welcome to the Doshikai Kendo and Iaido Dojo. My name is Barry Poitras. I have been studying Kendo and Iaido for over 25 years. Located here in Acton, Massachusetts at the main dojo, we teach Shotokan karate as well as Kendo and Iaido courses.
Iaido is the art of Japanese swordsmanship. Students visualize imaginary opponents while performing different attacking and defending scenarios using the Japanese katana. Some of the scenarios are from standing and some of the scenarios are from seated positions. The goal of Iaido is to mold the mind and body and the cultivation and perfection of oneself. To do this, the movements require many repetitions with total concentration to perfect the techniques and become one with the body. Students begin with a wooden sword and after a period of time move on to an unsharpened edged sword. Eventually, senior level practitioners move to a real sword. For more information about Iaido classes, please visit our webpage at www.doshikai.org.
Shotokan Dojo, Beverly, Massachusetts. Established in 1962 in Swampscott, Massachusetts by Bernard Mulligan. At our dojo, volunteer instructors share their love and knowledge with others. The Kendo Club was established in 1999. It is affiliated with AUSKF and AEUSKF. We focus and meditate. We're also intense. We practice 2 to 3 times each week. We are committed. We have enthusiastic and dedicated members. We believe in community. Friends enjoy both practice and post-practice events. New members and visitors are always welcome. Come check us out online at www.shotokan.org.
Thank you, Sandy. Actually, after seeing this, I have a feeling there are some people in our audience that's saying, I actually want to start Kendo now. So that leads me to one question that we received. The question is asking, where do you recommend to go to get a good fitting and a purchase of the bogu? This person says e-bogu was recommended, but is there other places to look?
Yes, there are. I mean, if you search for Kendo equipment, you'll probably be surprised at how many that you'll find. But in the United States, eBogu, I think, is the #1 supplier of Kendo equipment. There's another in in California. There's another one in New Jersey called eMudo.com. It has a hyphen between the E and the Mudo. And then there's a third one that I'm familiar one is boguzen.com.
East Coast as well.
Yeah, boguzen.com. And they're also in New Jersey, New York area. And so those three, and you can shop around and, find one that fits your budget. And they're all, I know them all. I know the proprietors of all three. They're reputable people. And
also in Japan, all Japan Zenihon Budogu and what's that? The other one. They do internal shipping.
Yeah.
I forgot the Kyoto one, the one from Kyoto.
Tozando, somebody's asking.
Tozando, yes.
Tozando. Yeah.
Tozando and Zenihon Budogu, All Japan Budogu, the international shipping, but also if you know book shops are all over in Japan. So if you know, if you have a contact, if you visit Japan, you can visit book shop and then they can ship. Yeah. It's best to do fitting before buying. So rather than selecting online.
Yeah, it's difficult to get the right fitting, particularly the men. Everybody's face and head and shape is different. And each of these places have little diagrams that said you measure the circumference of your face, you measure the circumference of your head, and even that can sometimes not quite be accurate, and so you have to be careful there. But it's the best you can do if I mean, unless you want to fly to Japan and get measured there, you have to do the best that you can. It is difficult to get equipment.
If you have to explain to somebody who have no idea about what Kendo is, how would you explain to them how Kendo help build character? Do you want to start, Yoshida Sensei?
Yeah, okay. So Kendo is somebody said in the interview, but Kendo is a lifelong activity, Budo, and then it combines both physical part and mental part, and you can develop you can start anytime in your life, and you can restart anytime, and you can continue until you die, and you can that way, by continuing, you always find new things, and you can develop yourself both physically and mentally. Actually, that's different from sports. Sports is more like a physical part. Of course, you have to have a mental part as well, but as your body changes, your mental also changes. And in fact, it is unique to Kendo that 3 generations can practice each other, and also like men and women. So that's a great thing about Kendo, I think.
And Harrison Sensei?
That's an extremely difficult question to answer in such a short period of time. I mean, what I would say to anyone is come down to our dojo and watch. and you may not get the answer that day, but if you practice Kendo diligently, those answers will come to you through your experience. I mean, Kendo is a journey without a destination. It's something that you have to experience to really understand. You know, if you notice, the Boston Kendo Kyokai logo is a wheel. And we chose that because Boston, it was called the hub of the universe by some politician back in the 19th century. But what we think about it is the wheel turns, right? So the wheel turns. You come to practice every day. You come to practice. The wheel turns, and what happens when the wheel turns? The vehicle moves forward. So that's how you find out, is by doing it.
Thank you, Yoshida Sensei. Thank you, Harrison Sensei. And also an equally big thank you to our audience for joining us. It's always, always a humbling experience to have you all join us on an online event. So I hope you had a wonderful time. I hope you felt connected to Kendo tonight. And I hope we will see you again soon, either in person or online at the Japan Society of Boston. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
ありがとう。